If there's one game dev in the industry that has inspired me to keep making games despite feeling burnt out and insecure, it's David Whaley. David Whaley is a really good friend of mine and also the creator of the indie gem, The First Tree. Although the game was wildly successful, David proceeded to spend the last couple years in secret building his new horror farming sim, We Harvest Shadows. Like most game devs, David ultimately found himself making a game that burned through his savings, leaving him with an unfinished game and barely enough motivation or money to keep going. But I want you to stick around for the entire conversation because David's story is surprising and it's the perfect example of why having courage and sticking with your project despite everyone telling you that it sucks can pay off big time. By the way, if you're like me and you always dreamt of making an indie game as a full-time job, I have a free webinar below that goes into exactly how to make six figures with just a demo. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a paycheck, but there's actually 3 ways to make six figures before even finishing your game. I've done this multiple times, so check it out below if you do want to go full-time indie. And thanks for watching.
My name's David Whaley. I'm a full-time game developer. I went to school for filmmaking, but even before then I was making mods and custom levels for old games like Star Wars Jedi Knight and Far Cry and Quake 3. I've always been obsessed with games and storytelling. So yeah, I worked at a design studio that's where I found Unity for the first time. And that's where we're doing a lot of film type work using doing a lot of motion graphics work and sometimes game engines. And that's how I found out about Unity through a friend, coworker. And then a lot of those friends from that design studio, they formed a company called The Void, which was a VR location-based company. It was like a small startup in Utah and it grew to this giant thing. And we used Unity there and Unreal. And we got a deal with Disney, with Lucasfilm. We did Disney Animations and Sony Pictures. I was a technical artist there. And I did video editing stuff there too. So it was fun. I wore a lot of hats. That's what I've always liked doing. I just love learning all these things about digital creation. And it was during my time at The Void where at night I would work for fun on these projects just because, you take a lot of orders from a creative director and from producers. And I was like, I want to make something for me. So my first game came out in 2015 called Home is Where One Starts. And, I think a lot of indie devs, they're like, I was back in the time of Steam Greenlight, and I was like, I just saw Indie Game the movie. I actually went to Sundance and saw it there because I'm in Utah. And Jonathan Blow was there in the audience taking questions and answers. It was fun.
Nice.
And when I saw that movie, I think a lot of people have seen Indie Game the movie, and that was so inspiring. And I was like, I'm going to release my first game and I'm going to make $1 million. It was a bit inspired by more artistic games because, in film school, you're seeing more challenging films, more slow burn films. And I was when I first played Dear Esther in 2010, I was like, oh my gosh, these games can be so beautiful and artistic and experimental. So I loved Dear Esther. Yeah. I loved Gone Home. So I made my first game in that same type of subgenre. Some people call them walking sim games. I like calling them exploration games. And then I made it. I was like, I'm going to make $1 million. And it sold 100 copies, maybe 1,000 at the end of the month. And it was fun because it was I got some Taco Bell money. I got some new PC money. And it felt good, but I was a little disappointed. I was like, I thought this would be easier. So I took a break. I was focusing on my job. We had our first child, our daughter. And then while I was at The Void, I was like, I want to do it again. I had this idea about a fox inspired by Journey while I was doing the dishes. And I wanted to do it for me. And there was mistakes I made, right? There was mistakes I made with marketing my first game. So I was like, I'm going to try to fix that. I'm going to try to go for a hook and something people want. So it was Journey plus Fox. And it did great. It just immediately news outlets were like, Journey plus Fox, check out this indie game. It was just that hook alone. Yep. It changed everything. It was the hook. It was the graphics. It was... I don't know, I would post a GIF of it on Reddit and people would say, just looking at this GIF is making me well up in tears. And that surprised me. I didn't get any kind of reaction like that from my first game. So I was like, okay, this is something cool. So I kept working on it, on the side. I was moonlighting as an indie dev. And that did great. Like it made, man, the first year it made 150,000 on Steam. This is like where my problems with publishers start to happen. Is I was burnt out. I had self-published it on Steam, and I was like, I'm tired, but I would love it to be on console. Like that's like the dream come true for an indie dev. But I didn't want to do it myself. I'm not much of a programmer anyway, so I definitely needed help to pass certification.
Yeah.
So I started talking to publishers, and I'm like, hey, I have this successful game. Could you help me put it on Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One? And they'd be like, yeah, this is great. And they just ghost me. It happened with multiple people.
Yep. It's kind of the norm, I think.
Yeah, I was like, I need help. And I'm like, I want to give you a percentage. And it just didn't happen. So I don't want to call it spite, but like out of defiance for people who weren't going to help me, I was like, fine, I'll just do it myself. We'll do it live. I don't care. And so you helped me out, which I owe you big time, Thomas. You helped me out by introducing me to Matt Ty at Do Games, and he helped me pass certification. I self-published the first tree on all 3 consoles, and that's where it got really crazy, is because the game did decent on Xbox. It did okay on PlayStation 4, but on Nintendo Switch, it was near the end of a gold rush of 2018. The end of 2018 was the end of the indie gold rush.
Yep.
And, it's been discounted a lot, but I wonder if I can even say the number. It sold hundreds of thousands of units on Switch, which was great. And then I was like, I can quit my job. I can be full-time indie.
Yep.
And so after that, it was like such a whirlwind. I spoke at GDC about what I learned, and then I just got this massive influx of people wanting to talk and ask questions. And I was like, I love teaching. I'll do an online course because so many people are asking me questions. Why don't I make a video resource so everyone can learn what I did?
Right.
And that worked. That was really hard. And I can't even like get into it all in this talk, but it taught me a lot. Like I've turned my passion into a full-time job. Yeah. It wasn't as simple as I thought. I had turned me being this relatable personal connection into like a product. Everyone was like, oh, there's the parasocial relationships on YouTube where people are like, that guy, he's a nice guy. He's going to help me out. And, when it's so many things like suicidal teenagers or children, like 12-year-olds in war-torn countries whose cities have just been bombed, and you're just getting every single email, like an impossible amount of people to talk to. And that was hard. I learned a lot about myself. It was, it was during COVID as well. It was such a horrible, dark time in my life, to be honest. And it's like, oh, you have the dream job, and that's what the voice in the back of your head's saying. And then, I don't know. Have you gone through something like that, of like turning this full time and trying to keep your sanity at the same time?
It's oh man, I don't know how to explain it. So you and I both we make games, and then we also do YouTube content, and I saw you started doing more YouTube content. And then we also sell resources to people, right? So it's like 3 completely different business models that are also linked depending on the financial situation you're in, right? So for example, if you make a ton of money from your games, you can just sort of side hustle with YouTube or selling resources or whatever, and you can make a lot of money from both, right? And you're running multiple businesses. But then when the economy tanks or things suck in the game industry, then you start sort of relying on one thing over the other. And so I'm a big fan of having multiple streams of income. And you and I have talked about this for years, how much I value having multiple streams of income. But my problem is like, I always feel like I'm on thin ice.
Yeah.
Like I always feel like everything's going to collapse underneath me. And that's a terrible way to build a business, right? If you're going to build a game studio, you cannot, like, you and I are friends with Julian, and Julian was on the previous podcast, and he's making a game called Lens Island. His mindset's totally different than mine.
Yeah.
His mindset is like, I'm just going to put everything into this game and it's going to do great and I'm good. Granted, he carried a lot of that stress internally, which led to his heart attack.
Heart attack. So crazy.
Yeah, dude. So for me, I've got like 3-4 backup plans at all times. Yeah. And what that means is I give so much of myself to YouTube, to my subscribers, to my students, to my publishers, to my team. And then by the end of the day, when I go downstairs and I've got 3 kids running after me, well, 2, and then one of them's sitting in her bouncer because she's an infant. And a wife as well and a dog. And it's like, I've got nothing left. And did you ever, I'm not sure if you felt that way, but did you ever feel like this isn't worth it? Like the constantly being stretched. You know when Bilbo is it Bilbo? Yeah, Bilbo says in Fellowship of the Ring, he's like butter scraped over too much bread.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way?
Yes, 100%. And I've talked to other business owners, small business owners, and it seems like it's pretty common. We're adults now, and it's funny because I still feel like that teenager making mods for video games, but like, you know, there's a crushing responsibility to provide. That's what kind of like, when I spoke at GDC, I had this one guy come up to me, and he was like this senior engineer at Samsung, really probably making a ton of money, really smart. And he had a different problem than me. He was like, I hate my day job. I just can't do this anymore. My life is like running out in front of my eyes, and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to make indie games. And he said, he got a phone out, his phone out. He's like, David, if you tell me right now to quit my job and make games, I will call my boss literally in front of you, and I'll quit my job and make games.
That's so funny.
And this was my honest answer. I said, don't do that. Do not do that. And I don't know. I don't know if it was, I think it was the right answer, but I don't think it was what he was expecting. Because I think I've been full-time for now 5-6 years. My course helped supplement my bills, but it didn't help as much as I thought it would. And so it's been kind of like, you know, I've been worried about paying the bills and stuff. But yeah, it's I think now that I look back, I might have been happier when I was working on the first tree and I had a day job to pay the bills. And that was just me. Like, I know like your material is like get a publishing deal and do a Kickstarter and quit your job. And some people, that is like the happiest day of their life when they're like, I'm making games full time. But like to do it for a decade or two, it might be the hardest thing you ever do, and it might tear you apart in some ways. And so that's kind of what I'm learning. I've tried to be wise financially. I read the book, I think it's called Rebound. It's a business book, I think by the Basecamp devs or something in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they said like one of their tips they give everybody is like diversify revenue. And they said, look at this book. Like we're web developers, but we made this book and it's a bestseller. And we're diversifying our revenue and creating a safety net for our company.
Yeah. That's really encouraging to hear, man. Cause like I always, sorry to interrupt, but like I always feel kind of guilty, even though like my games have always provided just enough for me and my team. Things are getting tight right now in the economy.
Yeah.
The game industry is really tough. And so having a diversified income stream for me has been a godsend, specifically in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I can't get into the details. You and I have talked about it in private, but I needed significant. It's significant to the people listening right now. Probably a significant amount of money to pay my team during a difficult time, and I'm just really, really glad that I had a YouTube channel, and I'm probably going to do a whole video on this of why YouTube is so valuable to game devs. But yeah, dude, it's been so helpful. But all that said, you mentioned something earlier I wanted to comment on, which is you said if you think you might have been happier when you had a day job. I don't think I've ever been this is so sad, but I don't think I've ever been like truly happy. Like from the day I was born until now, I'm just not like a happy person. I'm a motivated person.
You're ambitious, and you don't want to sit. You don't want to sit still. You want to keep going.
Yeah, and so like working for a boss, it's there's more peace, I guess, on one side of your body, maybe the financial side, but there's another part of my body that's just burning if I can't do what I want to do. You know what I mean? And so it's not joy, it's not happiness, it's satiation.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Being satiated?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm happy. And so it's kind of like really frustrating because like last night I was up at like 3 a.m. No, like it was like midnight to 4, just like anxious.
Yeah.
About Twisted Tower, which is the game I'm working on. And I had to get up and like I took like a 30-minute shower trying to like calm down. And I'm sitting here thinking, why am I putting myself through this? And it's all it is just wanting to be satisfied creatively. It's like a drug. It's literally like a drug. I'm unhappier when I'm doing drugs, right? The drug of game dev. I'm unhappy, but I'm addicted to it. And it's just the creative control. It's such a weird thing. So I don't even know, like you said, I don't know if I would recommend this to somebody to quit their full-time job to do this. I would say make sure you have plenty of money before you start doing this.
Yeah. And in these creative fields that are very competitive, I think it's a common thread. I come from a film background, and I know some visual effects artists, which is the most brutal industry, 100-hour weeks, constant overtime, no benefits. There was like this huge article on how these Oscar-winning visual effects artists were living out of their car. And a lot of visual effects artists are like, oh, you want to go into the movie industry and make special effects and get money. And they're like, no, don't do that. If you want to make money, do something else. But
do something else,
if you have to make visual effects, like you were born to do it, you have to, then that's the only reason you should do it.
Yeah.
And I love telling stories. I kind of have to. I don't know. Like, it is hard. It's hard doing that balance, right? Of you want to do a successful business, but you want to make the games you want to make, but those games aren't selling well. It's a balance, but what drives, and I see this with you too, is it's like, I don't know if I consider it like, I'm getting high off of it, but it's this ambition. And that's why, like, when people ask me like, oh, do you regret going full-time indie? Because, my thing, we'll talk about the new game soon, which has been this amazing surprise in my life. But right now, like, if this new game didn't exist, I am broke. I spent all the money on this new game, which it's paying off. We'll talk about that later, I guess. People ask like, oh, is it worth the risk? Like, has it been worth it? Because like my family has needed to sacrifice, and I've sacrificed all my savings, and I've sacrificed my mental health. I've had to talk to therapists. I'm on medication now, which has been a huge blessing in my life. Just trying to figure this out, like to do this and be happy.
I don't know. I don't know if happiness is the right word.
I don't know if it's happiness. I'm proud of my work. I'm satisfied with it. But I think I had to do it. And those are the people I feel like succeed in indie games and in all artistic fields. Like, they have to do it. They just, it's in their blood. And and you either, you can quit your job or you don't quit your job and moonlight. I think all of that's irrelevant. Oh, do I pick Unity or Unreal? It doesn't really matter, I think, because in the long run, those people that they make a project, they stick with it, which is incredibly hard. They release it, and then they pivot. They learn from it. That's all it is. You do these games and you learn something from it. You're like, okay, I'm going to do something different this time. And the next game is a bit more of a success. You climb a ladder. And those are the people I see have been successful. And that's what I'm seeing in my career, is it started so small with, with hate mail and poor sales. And I just kept going, and I just analyzed the data, the output from this experience of releasing a game, and I pivot. I change things, and I do more research. And if people do that, that's usually the people that make millions of dollars, and then they get to they beat the game. They beat the indie dev challenge where they're like, oh, I can make whatever I want now because I'm a millionaire. And that's my feeling on it. People that don't give up.
Sure, exactly. And I think you and I were talking, I think it was last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, but we were just saying, wouldn't it be wonderful to release, because I'm working on Twisted Tower, you're working on We Harvest Shadows, we'll talk about it in a sec. And I was like, wouldn't it be awesome if we just had this, both of our games just went gangbusters.
Oh yeah.
Made $4 million a pop, $4 million per game. And we could, I'm getting chills. And I know I shouldn't, because it's like, that's not why you make a game. But it would be nice to just release a game that goes gangbusters. Nice. And all of a sudden you're like, I can make whatever I want. Yeah. And I don't have to worry about funding. And I don't have to worry about YouTube. Because I'll be honest with everybody, YouTube it can be a grind.
Huge grind.
And I love everybody listening right now, but it's rough sometimes. And yes, I do YouTube because, number one, I help you guys who are listening, but it does provide an income. Spoiler alert, it brings in income, and that's a good thing, and it helps me in my studio.
That's okay. Don't feel guilty about that.
But it's tough, It's like always seeking funding, always seeking a way to keep this train moving and chugging along. It would be nice to finally hit that big break. And to your point, it's kind of, and it's also to Julian's point, Julian, the creator of Lens Island, he said this last week. He said it's kind of basically inevitable that you'll eventually have a gangbusters game. Yeah. Because, I don't know, the way I see it is kind of like something like playing Animal Crossing. You just pull in the weeds. Uh-huh. And then before you know it, all of a sudden you've got a mansion on this island with like a pristine lawn. That's not what game dev's about, but it's the inevitable outcome of being obsessive and, well, let's try to change that word because I don't like obsession. Passionate. And almost, you can't stop doing it. You have to do it. I love that what you said about it's almost a requirement. There's people where it's just built into their DNA. And I don't know what that is, but it's in me, and I don't know where it came from,
Yeah, and I bring it up because it's okay for this to be a hobby. Like, it's okay to, you don't have to kill yourself if you just want to make games for fun. And that's such a pure, honest pursuit, and I really admire that now. And it gets more complicated when it's like, oh, this has got to provide my salary. It's got to feed my children. I have to work on it even though I'm so sick of it. There's so much freedom of doing it for fun and being like, I'm going to work on this. Oh, I'm done working on it. I don't need to work on it anymore. And that's that is what makes people happy. That, I think, is why I say I was happiest when I had the day job where the money was taken care of, and then I could work on my game. And it was such it was such a pure thing. It was so, I just really enjoyed that time.
The variable is freedom, I think. Freedom. Now, you're not free when you're obsessed with your game and everything hinges on it and it has to make you a certain amount of money. That's slavery to your game.
Yeah.
If I might say so. So I think freedom is a great way to be happy. If you're looking for happiness in game dev, try and figure out how to do it while being free from the anxiety and the misery of constantly worrying about the game's performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm learning a lot, and I'm proud of what I've learned, and I'm applying it to my business. It's kind of like what Julian said. He said, my body is a machine to make games, so let's take care of it. Let's optimize it. Take out the pressure a little bit. And, I spiral, I catastrophize where I'm like, oh no, my course sales, no one is buying it. We're going to die. I'm going to have to sell the house. That's not true. It will work out. But that's how my brain gets when it's the pressure. It's just so much all the time. And I think it's true with almost all business owners. It's not just a video game thing. It's not just a tech thing. Yeah. It is the sacrifice you make as an entrepreneur. And I don't have an answer for it. I think that's why it's so hard. And that's why, like, I'm close to the end of like what I can handle. I just, have you watched The Bear, that Hulu show?
No, we watched an episode and it hit really close to home for just that it's a family show, right? It's all about family
in a restaurant
drama, and it hit really close to home for someone in my family, and we had to turn it off because it was really hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's a very, very emotional show, right?
It is, and it's a show about passion and burnout. And that's why it appeals to me, is because there's a part where one of the new chefs, her name's Sydney, and Sydney's talking to her dad because she's opening up this restaurant, but she's also like already so burnt out. And then Sydney keeps saying like they're going to do it one more time for this restaurant called The Bear. And the dad's asking like, why do you feel like this is like the last chance you have? Like, don't you have so many more chances to follow your dreams and open up many restaurants? And Sydney says, like, this has to be the last one because it's the only one I got left in me. And that's how it felt after. Like, I was burnt out 5 years ago. I was burnt out
Me too.
Like in I was working on the first tree, 2016, and then I released it on Steam 2017, and then I was burnt out. But I was like, ooh, I made 100,000 off Steam. That's pretty cool. I wanted on consoles, so I spent like a huge chunk of money to get it on consoles, and it paid off. Like, I did get lucky with the Nintendo Switch launch. But by that point, like, I worked a year with my porting partner, Matt. I worked a year on it. And again, I was burnt out then. And I just keep doing it. And it's because of fear. It's because of anxiety. But I was like, I don't know. I'm afraid I have fried my brain. Like, I've pushed myself so hard. But there was a time, after the course, I was especially burnt out and depressed. And then I took a break. We had savings because we did have savings from the Switch launch and the course. And I was like Sydney from The Bear. I was like, I think I got one more left in me.
One more.
And I was like, I think I can do it for real. I have this budget. I can hire a programmer to help me, which is my weak spot. And I could make this game that I truly believe would do well. And it's a game that I was really excited about. And that led me to my 2 years in like seclusion, pretty much. Just me and my family working on this new game.
Well, let's hear about it. I want to hear all about this game. And I played the demo. It's freaking awesome.
Awesome.
I'm so excited for you, but let's hear about it.
Thanks, man. So yeah, just 2.5 years ago, I had this idea. I study Steam charts like every day. I'm one of the, I was talking to one of the Pal World devs recently, and he's like, "Oh, you're one of those." I'm like, "Yeah, I love it." Yeah. I check the Steam charts every day because I find it very interesting. I'm like, what is like appealing to gamers? Like, what do gamers want? And I have my own tastes. Like, I'm wearing my Silent Hill 2 shirt because I freaking love it. And I've been playing the remake. It's one of my favorite games ever. But I'm curious about, we talked about this our last talk, I think, the zeitgeist. Like, what is like the world of gamers? What are they drawn to? And you see it. Like, there's trends. There's cozy games. There's the battle royale games. There's games as a service that got so popular for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so that's the fun part of my job is I'm like, what's gonna go big, and what is something I want to make in that type of genre. I love cozy games. Like, I played a ton of Animal Crossing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Stardew Valley is a masterpiece. I was just thinking, like, what can I do that will do well, and that's something I want to make so it can help my family and also be something I'm really proud of. And so I had this thought of an anti-cozy game, and I would make my first horror game because I love horror games. My last 2 games maybe had horror adjacent elements where it was kind of scary at times, but they weren't horror games. So I was like, I want to make, and I was like watching a lot of like the A24 horror films. Like, they're almost like neo horror. there's like this new genre taking off in film, and usually games are behind film by quite a bit. So I was like, wow, people really love films like The Witch and Hereditary.
Oh yeah,
The Babadook is so good. I love that movie.
Yeah, I don't think that was A24.
No, that one's not A24.
Yeah, that was Australia. It was some Australian company. But yeah, really quick, what's your favorite A24 horror film?
Oh man, I don't know. Hereditary was filmed in Utah, so I'm quite partial to that one.
Was it really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
My friend worked on the visual effects in it. It's like down the street.
Did he work on that wonderful scene where she smacks her head?
That's exactly what he worked on. Yeah, that's exactly what he worked on. And that was, I know exactly where that road is near Park City in Utah.
Oh, I did not know that, man. Yeah, that's my favorite one for sure. And then obviously Midsommar right below it.
Yeah, I love Midsommar. And I also, this is unpopular, but I am obsessed with M. Night Shyamalan because his movies are so thrilling, but they have so much heart and they're so beautiful. And
you got to give him credit, man. At least he tries.
Oh yeah,
you know, to be unique and come up with something. Like if he's gonna make a horror movie about a woman who comes out of a pool, more power to you for trying, buddy. Because nobody else is really trying except him and Ari Aster. So
yeah,
that's so funny you bring that up. Those two directors are, they are my favorite directors.
They're so good. And like I think about how the Village, which kind of got a lot of hate, I think that's one of the most beautiful films ever made. And it's so like, it's scary, but it's also like a tearjerker, and it's so poignant. It's so melancholy. The music's like the best soundtrack I've ever heard ever.
Do you still listen to it?
Yeah, I listened to the Village soundtrack the whole time I was making We Harvest Shadows, pretty much.
Oh man, dude, I feel like you're like my brother because I have 3 older brothers, and we all love the same things, and so the Village, we all felt so excommunicated from all of our other friends because we loved the Village.
Yeah, it's great.
When I saw it, we walked out of the theater and everyone was like, that is so stupid. And I was like, that was the best thing ever. And it's not a horror movie, but it was marketed as one. Yeah. And that was the big problem. It should not have been.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it should have been marketed as, this is like a dramatic, old school sort of vintage film.
Oh yeah.
And that's what it is,
like,
you know?
Imagine if it was released in present day under the A24 label and it had no twist. Just take out the twist. It's like a historical drama. It's a historical drama. It would have been a masterpiece.
Well, how do you get rid of the twist, though? How do you get rid of the twist? Because like the twist is the whole theme of the film.
Yeah, but it's like they could have done that where it's like present day. I mean, present day for them, like in the 1800s or something. I don't know. I just feel like it distracted people, so everyone's thinking about the twist at the end. They're like, that was stupid. It's like, no, just did you forget all those moments, those perfect moments in the film? But
you know who the wasted opportunity in that film was? It was actually Joaquin Phoenix. I feel like he wasn't given enough direction. Yeah. In who to be, and because the character he played, I felt like that it was the least had the least depth. Yeah. So that could have been. I think his character was kind of weak, but that's just me.
Yeah. He's like supposed to be like the moody, quiet guy, which I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that movie. That's kind of the thoughts where like I wanted this idea of We Harvest Shadows popped in my head, and it was based on all those things I love. But, and this is important because I think a lot of developers, they don't do this step. I looked at what was popular and what people were buying, what people were excited for. I saw, Silent Hill 2, the remake, it had a ton of wish lists. People were so pumped for it. And I saw all the farming games. The cozy farming games were super popular. And I'm like, how can we combine those two things in an interesting way and tell a new story? And so I was hoping people would come for the weird genre mashup, but then they would stay for the characters and for the emotion behind it and the music and everything. So I got to work 2.5 years ago. I stopped doing YouTube and stuff, which, man, it was kind of hard because making a game is such an iterative process. So it would have been nice, I think, to have like feedback along the way. But I had an idea, and this is kind of where my marketing ideas come into play. I had a following from the first tree. I noticed that a lot of the games that did well were in these announcements, these big live events, like the PC gaming show Opening Night Live, the Game Awards, Summer Game Fest. And I noticed that some indies, like bigger indies, like, yeah, I just noticed that indies were getting spots in these shows. And I thought that was really cool. And I found out later it's because people like Jeff Keighley and his team, they want to support smaller games, and because they love smaller games. They love unique games that only indies can make. And I thought that was really cool. So I had this theory. I was like, if I work in secret, then that gives me more marketing leverage to be like, hey, I'm the maker of the first tree. Here's my new, never before seen trailer that I've worked really hard. And I did. I worked my butt off on that trailer. I had a friend who had like this motion capture stage in his basement. And so yeah, I asked for his help to do the trailer to make it like seem more than just a small indie title. I wanted it to feel really high, like professional and high production quality.
Yeah.
I worked so hard on that trailer. I think I worked on the trailer for like 3 to 4 months by itself.
Holy crap. And
the trailer was done like a year before my announcement, because I was trying to pitch it to people. I worked really hard on a pitch document, and I had the trailer. And during all that time, I had also realized that the people that get so many wish lists, it's because they have a demo. They have a fantastic demo. And it's harder with a narrative game, but also it gives you a different kind of strength. You can end on a cliffhanger. You can have all these previews of the characters and be like, oh, I want to know what happens next. And so it's a lot of work. I basically have made 2 games. I've made the We Harvest Shadows demo, and now I'm working on the full version, which, they share the systems and stuff that we work so hard on, but it was a lot of work to make the demo.
I did the same thing. The demo took, man, we spent all summer.
Yeah.
Fine-tuning just the demo.
Yeah.
We haven't released it yet, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge time commitment. And here's where you start to get into that territory of like, is this fun anymore? Is this like fulfilling me? It's like, well, no, this is your business, and you gotta get the demo good, or else it's all for nothing. So I do have help, but I'm like burning through all my cash reserves, because this is the funny thing. I mentioned how in the first tree I was kind of ghosted by publishers, and I was like, screw it, I'll do it myself. I was like, okay, I got a cool game idea. It's unannounced, because, sometimes publishers like Devolver, they'll do their own type of live event to announce their new games. I was like, okay, this is great. I have something they might want, and I think it's a cool idea. So I worked really hard on the pitch deck. At that point, I didn't have a demo ready. I just had like a sandbox mode. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be burnt out anymore. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get a publisher to help me for the first time, because I'm tired. I've been burnt out for 5 years. I pitched to the big publishers, the big ones that everyone knows. And it was super unenthusiastic and super lukewarm. I got ghosted. Sometimes they would respond and be like, it's an interesting idea, but we don't think it's going to work. That was what I heard a lot. I pitched I had relationships with my account managers at Nintendo and PlayStation and Xbox. And I talked to them, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We just don't think it's the right idea for the market. So that's literally, I'm by myself in seclusion working on this game that I believe in. Like, I love this game. I want to play this game idea, and I love the characters in this game. And everyone's telling me that it's not going to work. No one's going to buy it. I even hired some consultants who were like biz dev indie experts. And they said, yeah, it might sell 20,000 units lifetime. And I was like, oh, that's so harsh.
How much money is that?
I don't know. Maybe like it was a $15 game. What is that? Like 300,000, make $400,000. Yeah. And remember, like I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this.
Oh, dude, David, that's so discouraging, man.
And I don't know why. It's like that thing we talked about earlier. Like, I just had to. This was the last thing I had in me. And I was like, now there's like a little bit of, again, not spite, but like I wanted to prove people wrong. I was like, no, I love this game idea. Like, I'm a gamer. Like, I play all these games, and I want to play this game. That was really important. I keep going. No positive feedback whatsoever. and I'm working hard. And then, man, I'm sending the trailer to these live events, like to participate possibly. And sure enough, through some miracle, how did it happen anyway? I got turned down for the Game Awards. I got turned down for Summer Game Fest. And then I was like, wait, like I was so tired. In fact, I had decided I was going to announce without a big event because I was so burnt out. I was like, I can't like keep living. This is like where a lot of the depression comes from too, is like, I didn't know if it was going to be a success and that I was spending all of our money and sacrificing my mental health for a game that probably won't do well. And I had no idea. I just had no idea. So I needed to announce. So I was planning to announce probably, last August, regardless of if I didn't get into my last chance, because I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided I was going to do one last thing, and that was I was going to apply for Gamescom in Germany. It's the biggest gaming show in the world.
Yeah.
And I was going to apply for the Indies of America booth, which was expensive. Like, it's thousands of dollars. And it was a risk because, we're running out of money. But they did say in their little info pamphlet for Indies of America, if you apply for the show, then you get a chance to pitch to the Opening Night Live team. And Opening Night Live is huge game announcement with AAA games, but they sometimes feature indies. And I was like, okay, let's do it. This is my last chance. And sure enough, my manager of the booth said, here's Jeff Keighley's email. Why don't you show him your game? I was like, wow, I finally got his email. And he did it. He liked it. I showed him the trailer, and he was like, he's a really busy man, but it's like a one sentence thing like, David, I saw your trailer. This is great. Maybe we can, he said he wasn't committed. He just said, maybe we can put it in the show, but I can't confirm anything. So again, like this was like in March or April, coming up to August when Gamescom is. I was like, oh, I gotta wait. And that was killer. I was like, is this gonna happen or not? But sure enough, like really soon before the show, Jeff Keighley's like, hey, great news. We'd love to have you in the pre-show for free as an editorial placement. Normally these shows cost, I don't know, I think the pre-show spot's like $80,000 or something like that. But it began, again, like talking to the crew with Jeff Keighley, they just love small developers and they want to support games they believe in. So to get that validation was such a relief because...
Did he even play the game?
No, he just saw the trailer. He might have played the demo. Okay. I sent him the demo, so maybe he did.
Okay.
I don't know, though. And they said, hey, can we interview you, too, during the pre-show of Opening Night Live? I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk about it, because it was a really interesting human aspect story. That's like one of our greatest strengths as indies, is that we can be like, we're not like a faceless AAA company. It's like, it's a guy like Thomas, or there's a guy like David, and it's like, oh, look at this guy's story and stuff, and he's putting those feelings, those very personal feelings, into a game. So they interviewed me, which was kind of fun and stressful, and they invited me to Gamescom, to the Opening Night Live show. And that was a whole other thing. And by this point, I still don't know, like, I knew the game would probably get 10,000 wish lists in a day just from being an Opening Night Live pre-show. Because the game had never been announced. It was top secret. But then I was like, okay, I have the demo almost ready. And I think launching with the demo will be great publicity. So yeah, I worked so hard on the demo. And then I had a lot of friends. I had some GDU students. I had some acquaintances play the demo for We Harvest Shadows as a play test, because that's important. You can't just launch a demo and no one's tried it before. You need to fix all the bugs, or else you're gonna get raked over the coals. My play testers, they did not like my game.
What the heck?
Some people did. I want to be fair. Some people were like, I love this game. But I would say the majority of it was like, I don't play games like this. I don't really like it. I think it's pointless. It's boring. I give it a 4 out of 10. That was one of the reviews.
I just got a 5 out of 10 from one of my playtesters
for Twisted
yesterday.
Tower.
Yeah, and I was thinking, in a way, I was just thinking, I think you're just a mean person. Because, like, a 5, I mean, give it a 6 at least, but a 5, my goodness. But you and I have been talking for the last 2 weeks, and you've been so encouraging to me, David, because I've been doing playtesting, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially just sending it out to random people that aren't necessarily in your genre.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Whereas Steam, the algorithm knows how to push the demo to the right people, right?
Exactly.
So it's totally different. The feedback you get from a play, and I learned this from you a couple days ago. Just because you're getting negative feedback in playtesting has almost no correlation to what Steam players are going to feel.
Yes.
And also, they got a free demo, so there's a feeling of it's free, so it's they're going to be a little bit maybe more generous.
They
I don't
are.
know.
They're more forgiving with the demo.
Yeah.
I first of all, I played Twisted Tower and I seriously loved it. You're so talented with art, and I've been a fan of your game since Pinstripe beat that game. So you know what you're doing.
Dude.
You're so talented with art and execution, and I had so much fun with it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm really excited for your demo, and I think I'm usually not wrong about these things. I think your game's going to be successful. With like seeing all my
I
students,
hope you're not wrong.
I've seen like my students and Game Dev Unlocked, and I've seen some of them where I'm like, this game is gonna pop off, and I'm almost always right, which is cool. And I feel like Twisted Tower is gonna pop off, but yeah, get the demo, polish it. It's so important.
I just got an email from Jay Armstrong, the creator of Cult of
Yeah,
Orion.
I saw that podcast that you had.
Yeah,
with him.
Side note here, just so I can flex a little bit on this podcast. He emailed me and he played the demo yesterday, Twisted Tower, and it was so encouraging.
Good,
because
he's an expert.
I had just gotten.
He's a game design god.
Oh, for sure. And he gave it a 10 out of 10.
Yes.
He was like, he said, "Holy crap, dude!" But he used a different word, and I was like, yes, like thank you. But it's so hard for everybody listening. If you do a play test, if you get feedback that's negative, like David and I have gotten for our games, it's almost meaningless. Like, I don't know. You just kind of just have to ignore it and look at the aggregate.
Yeah.
Because like right now I'm sitting at an 8.2 out of 10 with 25 testers. Mm-hmm. And these are like hand-picked. Half of them are game dev legends. So I'm feeling really good today. Feeling really, really good. But did you get an aggregate when you were sampling data or playtesting?
I guess I could. I actually didn't average it out, but it hovered around 6 to 7 out of 10. There were
that's discouraging, man.
And I don't know what to say. I have a couple theories. Like you mentioned it, like Steam's algorithm is so good at finding the right player base. And like if someone were to make me play, like I don't really like deck builder games that much. And so if someone were to make me play a deck builder game that was like a rough demo, I think I'd be like, oh, it's fine. Like I gave it a 7 out of 10. But that's not your goal. Your goal, like for Twisted Tower, like your goal, Thomas, is to find the people who love BioShock and are itching to play a new BioShock. Like that is your golden goose. And like think of Eric Baroni with Stardew Valley. He was like Harvest Moon fans. Like that's who he was targeting, not someone who's like, I want to play Call of Duty. Like no, he wants to Harvest Moon fans, and that's what he did.
Or for you, it's like you want to maybe I'm wrong here, but I think yes, you want to get the farming sim people, kind of.
Yeah.
But really, you want to get the people who like a sense of place, and a feeling and a mood, right? Yeah. And those are the people that I'm trying to find. It's like, okay, yeah, combat's fun, but like me personally, for Twisted Tower, I'll be honest, combat is not my priority.
Yeah.
My priority is a sense of place.
Yeah, atmosphere.
And feeling atmosphere. And if it oozes atmosphere, the goal is to find the people who love atmosphere. That's my player base, right? And your player base, I feel like is kind of the same thing. You want the people who are going to be invested in the story and the mood and the feeling more than anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was like when I told you about the biz dev consultants and the people that rejected the game a year ago. That was usually their reasoning, where they're like, "Oh, it's a genre mashup, and you're going to push away the farming fans and the horror fans because you're not doing both very well."
It's not that you're not doing it well; it's that it's like you're not like amping it up.
Yeah,
it's not like super horror or super farming sim. It's light on both those things.
Yeah, and
so they're probably like rightfully, at least from like an initial thought, maybe you thought maybe they're correct.
Yeah.
Because,
And it scared me. It's like, oh, these are really smart people. Like, they've been doing this decades. Like, maybe this game won't do super well. But that was the thing. And this is the thing, like, I can't quantify. But like my gut was telling me like I saw all the power washing simulator games. I saw all the popular horror games on itch where you like, you know, you're working at the convenience store and you got to take the trash out, like all these task oriented horror games. I saw the Mortuary Assistant sold like 300,000 copies where you're just doing a job while you get haunted. And then I saw how we have been inundated with these soulless arena shooters and soulless MOBAs, and like people were sick of these games as a service. They want more personal single player games. And all the business people would say, nah, we got to do Fortnite, bro. That's the only way we're going to make money. We got to do these games. We got to do Diablo on phones and stuff. And it's like, no, like I'm a gamer. Like I want more games like Silent Hill. I want more games like What Remains of Edith Finch. And I think there was a drought. There was a gap in the market. And that's why I believed in my game. That's why I believed in my game. I was like, this has to resonate. And it sucks to work in secret and everybody except maybe your wife is telling you this game is not going to work.
Yep.
But I kept going. I just, you got, again, like you have to. You just have to keep going. And this is like, I had this one last game left in me. I was like, I'm going to do it good. So I knew the demo needed to be good. I did have a brilliant programmer helping me, Connor from Smash Button Games, and he helped me a ton fix all the issues. But yeah, it was a lot of asset packs. It was a lot of customizing textures. It was a lot of shortcuts. It was a really scrappy indie project. And even though it was so scrappy, it still cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. It was a huge risk. It was a giant gamble. And that's what you kind of got to do, I guess, nowadays.
How did that affect we can cut this out if you want, but how did that affect your marriage and your family? It being a gamble.
I have a super supportive wife, and she was like supportive of like, yeah, do Game Dev Unlocked. That's a good idea, diversify. I think...
Your course.
Yeah, my course. I think she hated seeing me suffering so much, and so she was like, yeah, get to announcement day. Then we'll know. Like, that's all I wanted to know. Like, I didn't even need it to be successful by August. I was like, I just need to know if the game will flop or succeed. Yeah. And then she told me, she's like, I'm tired of seeing you like stressed and hurting and having insomnia. Like, let's figure out a different plan, so you're not doing it all. Because at the end of the day, and this is a truth I think is totally relevant, I think making a game is kind of impossible. Like, I just think it's this impossible task, and we do it anyway because we're kind of crazy. But every game released is a miracle. Like, every single game, it's so hard. I don't think people realize, like, to do a full game, how much work it actually is. And to do it by yourself is kind of close to insane, but we do it anyway. We do it.
I think, I can't remember what I said. I said it in a previous podcast, but making a game is something like, it's kind of like building a house during a hurricane.
Yeah.
That's how it feels. Because it's collapsing all around you at all times.
Yeah.
The first reason is because you're not perfect, so like your code sucks or your assets aren't correct or they're not sized properly or blah, 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 blah. There's a million reasons why you're just not, your hands are not building it perfectly. But the other reason why it collapses while you're building it is because you're collapsing it.
Yeah.
You're the hurricane.
Yep.
Your future self, my future self, I promise you this, next week will collapse my certain parts of my game that I built this week.
Oh, man.
And that's just because you grow. The whole concept of a game design document is a wonderful thing, but we should all know that your GDD that you have at the beginning is completely irrelevant to the final game.
Yeah.
You change everything. And it is like, I feel it's definitely unhealthy, but it's like some people have a really unhealthy relationship with like food, right? Mm-hmm. They feel guilt about food. I feel guilt about breaking my project.
Yeah.
And I'll lay awake at night and feel like such an idiot for Thomas, how could you do this? And how could you do this to your team? Because we've reworked every single level in Twisted Tower a minimum of 3 times. And by rework, I mean delete it and start over.
Yeah.
And that's 10 levels. So that's 30 levels total, just completely sabotaged and destroyed. And my team member, Felipe, he's the 3D artist. And I'm the art director. Just so people know kind of how we work together. I'll tell him what I'm thinking and he'll build it. And then a month later, I'll say, yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's so much guilt and anxiety and pressure. But I'm learning, and it's because of conversations like this, where I talk to top tier devs who have created something magical. And they're like, yep, we were there. Did the same thing.
I'll go through
you know, all of them.
My heart goes out to you. It's part of the creative process. It's iterative. And I have a quote actually while you were speaking. It's very relevant for Twisted Tower. I read an interview with Ken Levine a long time ago, who did, the director of BioShock. And it was right before it came out and before it won all those Game of the Year awards. And he said, he's like we have remade this game 5 times. And, and he's made games a long time. And he said, he's like, I am convinced now at this point in my career that the more stuff you throw out, the more likely your game is to be a masterpiece. And that's what happened. It sucks. It sucks to throw away your work. And there was things I discovered weren't working in my demo. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, because I had Connor. And yeah, I'd be like, sorry, Connor, that was for nothing. I'm so sorry.
It is hard. It's you're burning cash. I mean,
yeah.
It's essentially like you put, I'll say for me, this game has cost over $500,000.
Ooh, yeah.
And with me, and then also just investors and all that. So I would say maybe half of that was just burned.
Ouch. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, it's hard.
Burned at the altar of what is this altar? The altar of
creativity.
You're figuring it out, yeah. And my hope is that for you and me, our next game, we know what works and what doesn't. And that's true to a degree, we'll learn and figure out, we're not going to make the same mistakes we made the last couple of years. But then again, the next game you make is probably going to be bigger. And the next game I make, I don't want it to be bigger. I'll tell you this.
Is the limit.
I know you say that because I'm thinking the same thing. I'm sitting here going, because I watched your video and you said I'm going to do small projects from now on after this one.
That's my goal. Yeah.
I've said the same thing, but David, I'll speak for me. I know myself. I know what's going to happen.
Oh no.
I'll do a small game and then it's going to be so much fun, and I'm going to go, okay, this game can make $500K. And then I'll say, but if I invest 2 more years, it could be 10 million.
It's a dangerous road to go down, but I totally get it.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard.
Oh, man.
And it's like,
yeah.
For me, I really just want to make enough to not feel so pressured of not having cash. I have a family. Yeah. To go with the Lord of the Rings theme, I was talking to my wife and we're like, it's like when they're about to Sam's asking Frodo, well, are we going to have enough bread for the trip home? It's yeah, it's such in denial as they realize their resources are only going to get them to Mount Doom, and then they'll just have to die. There's no backup plan. They're we're out of food. And we were spending so much money getting the demo done, and I did hire an environment designer for a month. I had my programmer I told you about. I'm buying $2,000 worth of assets, which is nothing compared to how much hired help is. People cost. Yes. It's costed me 6 figures just in people. Just my programmer, pretty much, who has helped so much. He works full time on it, and unfortunately, that's what sucks. Is I was we're not going to have money to finish the full game, so I was just I just got to get to announcement day, not launch day. It is the launch of the demo. So we're working so hard. We're fixing these critical bugs. I have my play testers who are just this kind of sucks. There's no one's a couple people liked it. But I was that is not the response I wanted. The day comes where I'm okay, I think we fixed most of the bugs. It's not perfect, but it really gives a good feel. It's a vertical slice of what the full game will be. I get all my ducks in a row for the big announcement. We fly out to Germany which is a lot of fun. Me and my wife, and then my best friend Matt Stokes. He's the voice of Garrett, so him and his wife come. We got to share that with them, and it was so much fun. I'm just like such a small little fish in a huge pond of these gaming AAA legends and everything. Man, it's such a crazy story. I don't even know if I can tell it all. But to sum it up, I get to go to the opening night live. First of all, my show's not in opening night live. It's in the live stream only. So I'm like there on my phone while I'm sitting next to like the Blizzard president and Peter Molyneux. And I'm just looking at my interview on my phone while they get ready for the real show live in the theater. And it's cool just being there. It's honestly like a highlight of my career. Like I'm just there, but I still don't know if like people like the game. There's a lot of like trash talk in the chat for the game because that's what people do. There's haters on the internet, but that's okay. I knew like people would be hating it on the live chat or whatever.
Wait, so the trailer was premiering live and the chat was being negative?
Oh yeah, and they always are. Maybe there's a few people are like, hey, this looks cool. But my brain is like, I only see the negative. But I'm getting better at that. And seeing the reality of things for what they are. And the reality is that Jeff Keighley saw something in the game. He was my supporter. He wanted to support it for free because he liked it. And it was such a win. I was so grateful for that. We go to this VIP after party. And that's where I'm like, I know these people are staying in like 5-star hotels. And my hotel is literally full of spiders. Literally like no AC. Just we're sweating our butts off every night because it's like 90 degrees in the room. Spiders all over us. And I'm like, I do not belong in this VIP party. And sure enough, like I see indie superstars walk past me who are very rich. I'm standing next to Phil Spencer, president of Xbox. My wife just starts chatting with the Blizzard president about being a mom and working in games. That was kind of cool.
That's
and
great.
They're passing around little like waffle cones full of caviar. And I had it. I was like, that was not good. It's like, it was such a weird world. I was not, it was like being an outsider and looking in for a bit. I'm like, man, this is such a big business full of millionaires and billionaires. And I was invited in just because of Jeff Keighley, because he wanted to support small game developers. So I owe a lot to him. The team was so amazing. The team like loves indies. They loved hearing a personal story about how games can be art and have these stories. Yeah. Because I don't know if I've said yet, We Harvest Shadows is a first-person farming horror allegory, is what I'm calling it. And it's about this man, Garrett, who wants to run away from the world forever because of his past. And so he does all these tasks during the day to build up his farm and forget about his life. And you learn about his life through flashbacks and voiceover and journal entries. But then at night, these inner demons come to life and they kind of haunt him. And so there's this tension between working during the day and surviving the night. And that's what the game is about. And it's a personal story about self-hatred, about am I good enough? Like, do I keep going? Things like that. I should have said that in the beginning of the video, but that's what my game is, We Harvest Shadows. Man, I don't even know where to go from there. I'm just doing my booth like a normal game developer in the indie section. I mean, I love talking to indie developers there. It's so much fun. And then I'm checking my wish list and I'm like, okay, I was right. I got 10,000 in one day. Awesome. Huge boost. It took me a year to get 10,000 wish lists for the first tree.
Yeah.
So I get that in a day, which is a huge deal. And I expected it to taper off. I was like, okay, it will taper off and I'll probably end, because I'd done a ton of research on other games that would announce during opening night live. And they would probably get 20 to 30 grand, and then it would taper off to 10 to 50 a day after that. So that's pretty normal. In fact, I found another developer who announced their indie game at opening night live, and I was like, hey, let's compare wishlist numbers. And it was a team, theirs did way better. Like I had it was like on day 3 or 4 of the convention, so I had about 20,000 wish lists at this point, and then he had about 35,000, and it announced exactly at the same time, very similar games. So I thought that was really interesting. But then something happens I don't expect. I get a Splattercat video, the YouTuber, and he says this is one of the most inventive farming RPG horror games. He just calls it a farming RPG, which I was like, oh, it's not really an RPG, but that's cool. And he loves it. He tells his audience, this is a great demo. You got to play it. I get a spike in Wishlists. I then start getting I get a YouTuber named Insim who has 1 million subscribers. He's like, this is horror game of the year. Wow. Didn't expect that. He plays it over and over again because he loves it so much to find every little secret. And again, he's like, guys, this game is so good. Please wishlist it. Huge spike after that. And then it leads to Gab Smolders, who she loves farming games and she loves horror games. And this is the first of its kind where it's combined. And she's like, oh, that was such a good demo. I love this game. Gab Smolders, her boyfriend is Jacksepticeye, or Sean.
Oh, geez.
And so
yes.
Jacksepticeye, he's like, I couldn't get my girlfriend to shut up about this game, so I'm playing it. He has 30 million subscribers. He's like, what a great game. I love the message about mental health. He DMs me. We're talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is all happening. It's such this whirlwind. It's just this exponential increase. More YouTubers, smaller YouTubers, like they are always covering it. There's hundreds or thousands of videos of We Harvest Shadows demo. And at this point, I'm at 197,000 wish lists. And I'm almost in the top. I'm in like number 140 in the world of top most wishlisted. And it's been less than 2 months. It's been unbelievable. I had no idea. Like, I knew the Jeff Keighley thing was huge, but comparing my game to all the other games at Opening Night Live, I think the only games that were beating it were like Indiana Jones and like Starfield and stuff like that. Like, it was unbelievable. And it's just because people resonated with the story and the music. They want to see more, so they wishlist it because they want to see the story continue. They see like the future items they can buy, and they're like, oh, I want that so bad. I can't wait to play this game.
Yep.
Dude, it's been the most insane event of my life. And I have every publisher begging me to fly out to them. They want to wine and dine me. The publishers that did not believe in the game are like, hey, how's it going? Hey, man. You're doing good. And they just have...
I hate that. It pisses me off so bad, man. I told you this last week. It pisses me off.
Money signs in their eyes. It sucks. Well, it doesn't suck.
Well, they don't know what a good game is, clearly. They don't know. Like, I've just been getting more and more frustrated with publishers these days because... You're right. You said, I think you said this last week. We were on a call, and you said something like they're higher than me or something, or they're like better than me, or they know more. Clearly, they don't.
No one.
Right.
Here's the truth, and this is what I've learned. I've talked to the smartest people in the business. I've talked to the best publishers in the world. No one knows what the hell is going to do well. No one knows. Like, no one knows. They take guesses. But I was sure of it. Like, I'm like, I have a lot of confidence issues, and I'm like sometimes embarrassed by my work, but I knew that my idea was a good idea. I just knew it. Yep. That's the only reason I killed my mental health and spent all my savings to do it. And I just believed in it that hard, and it paid off. I took a giant risk. I did. And I'm probably going to make millions of dollars from this new game. If I do it right. I can't trip at the finish line, and there's so many bugs. I have so many horrible critical bugs where like save progress gets deleted and they can't even start up the game. And that's what keeps me up now.
Man, dude, bugs in my opinion, bugs are the last thing you need to worry about.
Yeah.
Like bugs, but what I mean is you need to solve them, yes. But like the real struggle, and you're past this, is that does the game have a hook? Does it have a USP?
Yeah.
Does it capture people?
Yeah.
Is it streamable?
Yes, that's a big thing. Like I built it wasn't like the only reason, but I was like, oh, I bet streamers might laugh if you throw the tomatoes in the trailer and then they fall over. Like, I don't know. I was just thinking about that where I'm like, because I'm a YouTuber. I'm like, I know what people want to watch now a little bit better than most. And I'm like, streamers, they have an audience and they want a game that will help them get views. That's honestly helped me a lot to know like what people want to watch.
I'd rather get 1,000 bugs than one comment from a tester that says, I don't get it. You know? And dude, that's where I was. In the beginning of this summer in June, I was really proud of Twisted Tower. Me and my team were feeling really good about it. And so we started getting people to play it. And 9 times out of 10, not even joking, people were like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this tower even is. I don't get the point.
Yeah.
And by the way, they were right, because we had to go in and bring in so much instruction and cutscenes and dialogue and set dressing to tell them, hey, this is what this game is. And you actually gave the perfect tagline to Twisted Tower last week. You just instantly knew what the tagline was, which is, what did you say? You said, demented Disney. And when you said that to me, I was like, thank you. He's got it. He figured it out.
It's a great game, but also, like, I think I'm your target audience. I love BioShock. I want to play another BioShock game. And that's why it's like playtesting is important, but I don't know. I don't have an answer for it because it was really painful getting the playtesting info. And it did help. But I had to boil it down not to like anecdotes or one person's opinion. I had to boil it down to data. Be like, okay, 63% of people get they screw up at this part. That was really helpful, and that helped me fine tune the demo so that it was just fun. it was easy. It wasn't hard to play the game, and you just got to focus. For me, I love looting, so I'm just like I'm popping every balloon and breaking every trash can, and I just love it. And that just made me be like, I'm having a good time. This is fun, and it takes play testing to figure out what is working, I think. So you did the right thing. You did the right thing, man.
I appreciate it. I really do. And I appreciate your feedback. It was really helpful last week. It was a hard week because we got some negativity, but you were very, very helpful. And, was there a time in your game when when the game wasn't communicating itself very well to players?
Oh,
where it didn't quite make sense what it was?
Yeah. And it's a weird genre bender. So it is like, what is this game? And some stuff you run into by accident. Like, I kind of thought it would be mostly scary the whole game. It was a day-night cycle. It's kind of an open world game in that sense. But what I learned was just through making the game, through experimenting, through being creative, is that during the day it can be more melancholy and the story can be delivered to the player and you can learn these things and you can have fun. And at nighttime, and this is true in real life, like if you're camping in the woods, nighttime is very different than being in your campsite during the day.
Exactly.
And that was that feeling I want where it's like, man, when you feel most alone, when you're quiet with your thoughts laying in bed and you have these horrible thoughts, like, could we put that into the game somehow? And so that was kind of by accident, really, is that. And then it was this huge benefit because during the day, if it's just constantly scary, like a flat line, no dips or like no valleys or mountains in the graph, then it's not as scary. Your brain gets desensitized to the horror. But if it's a little calm every morning and then it gets terrifying at night, it makes it more effective, actually.
Yeah. And you had to figure that out slowly, like this is what this game is.
The painting, which shows you your sanity, your mental state, that was added. That was such a last minute addition. Like, and I just was like, oh, that'd be cool. Like, I really was like, oh, that'd be cool. That might be fun to add more tension, to be like, oh, like, is there something going to jump out at me or something? And it was something like we just did in like a day. It was like, okay, it's done. It's been by far the most thing. Like, that has helped the game with streamers so much because they're always checking the painting and it freaks them out and it ups the tension. And it's just a painting, like, I didn't know that would be so effective. You just find out through play testing.
Do you know, I was thinking, David, how you were talking about the zeitgeist, and you like to think about what's culturally moving right now.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think there's one zeitgeist that you haven't mentioned. Maybe you know what it is, but what I immediately, when you sent me that trailer, you know what my first thought was? Acreage.
Oh yeah.
People are really craving, like, Americana is on the rise in America. Like, this sense of, I want to be country, I want to be alone, I want to learn how to homestead, I want land, I want privacy.
Yeah.
I think that is a cultural zeitgeist that's happening right now. It happened for me and my family. We went and got some acreage down the road because we want to build a kind of little mini homestead.
Yeah.
And when I was playing it, I got chills with that feeling of I'm alone finally.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah. And that's like kind of that's another theory I have is successful games, they need some form of wish fulfillment. And even if it's like a wish fulfillment like in Silent Hill 2 where it's like, oh, this is terrifying, but it's like I want that emotional satisfaction of like finding my lost dead wife and like saying sorry to her. Like that could be a form of like satisfying wish fulfillment. And like the first tree was like, I want to play a beautiful game as a fox, and people wanted to play as a fox. That was wish fulfillment. Like there's some indies that there's these beautiful artsy games, and I love the beautiful experimental story driven games. I haven't played it, but I watched a post-mortem of a game called The Car Wreck. And again, it's like these flashbacks of this person's life right at the moment of a car wreck. And I've been in a car wreck. It's horrifying, terrifying. It's loud. It's scary. You feel like you're going to die. I just had that feeling. I was like, the guy was like, we have made great, successful games before, but the car wreck did I think it's called The Wreck. Sorry. The Wreck did horrible. No one bought it. And I just kind of had a thought where I was like, even with the sad, serious games like The First Tree and We Harvest Shadows, I think there needs to be an element of the wish fulfillment. And that was me. Like, I was like, I want to get away from all of you. I don't want to see any of you ever again. And then the truth kind of unfolds where it's like, this is horrifying and I'm being haunted by my past. It's not what I thought, but still like that initial wish fulfillment. That's even what I said to the Jeff Keighley and the team where I was like, I truly believe this game will resonate with people because just a few weeks ago, there was a video that went viral of a doctor. He was a 29-year-old brain surgeon. I don't know if you saw this video. He said like he was trying to like, he like goes out to the middle of the mountains and he says, I'm leaving it all behind. I don't want to be a doctor anymore. And he just talks about for an hour. It's just him talking to this camera in the middle of nowhere. And he's saying how he doesn't believe in modern society anymore, and he wants to leave it all behind because of healthcare and the human body and what modern society does to stress and how that makes us sick. This is a doctor, a brain surgeon telling us that. And he says he's right. And he says he's no longer a doctor and he's going to find happiness in the quiet moments. And that like hour-long video of just this guy talking to the camera, it had like 20 million views, and everyone's like, preach. Oh, I needed to hear this. It was like cathartic. You know what I mean? And that's what I really want my game to be, cathartic. I want it to be emotional. I feel like horror can be this great delivery because it breaks down your defenses and it lets you relinquish some, I don't know, some control, and that allows you to have like this mental clarity of like, oh, like, I don't know. That's a theory too, is like an emotional story can be best served by horror because it's like cathartic in a way.
It sure can.
Yeah.
Catharsis, and Ari Aster talks a lot about that, the director of Hereditary. Both Hereditary and Midsommar both rely on a build-up to catharsis.
Oh, I love it. It's so genius. Yeah, especially with Midsommar. Man, Midsommar is like...
Dude, you're cheering for that girl as her boyfriend burns alive.
I love that movie. And again, it was so emotional. I think horror games should be emotional. Horror stories can be emotional, and that's what I want to try to do.
You know, I love what you said, David, about games being wish fulfillment. I've been getting in little spats on Twitter about what a game's primary driver should be. And I don't have an opinion, but sometimes I troll a little bit and I say fun is the most important aspect of a game. But so I've said that before, but I think I might change my opinion based on what you've said. I think wish fulfillment is probably a better metric. And the reason I say that is because, like, you mentioned the Rec. Another game that did really, really well as a streaming game, but did not sell, was That Dragon Cancer.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There's no wish fulfillment there at all. Nothing.
Brutal. Oh, I don't think I could. Like, I admire the game. I've even talked to the main developer once. Amazing guy. Amazingly well done. Won so many accolades. Like, it's so revered as an artistic, game. But yeah, no one. That's actually something I've thought of too. Or like even me, like as a parent, I don't think I could play the game. I just couldn't bring myself to do it really. But it's important. Like, I'm glad it exists. But yeah, when you're talking about trying to move copies and sell enough to support your family, it's hard. Like, you need a little bit of that wish fulfillment. And like, horror games are scary, but like, we are drawn to them still. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, this game makes me happy. Like, sometimes the wish fulfillment could be like, I need catharsis. And and I'm sure That Dragon Cancer does that. Catharsis of losing a child, but oh, that's such a dark place.
Yeah.
That is the darkest thing I could think of.
That is so dark. I would rather be tortured alive in the setting of Outlast than ever go through
I'm with
That
you.
Dragon Cancer.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And it makes me think about the difference between a film and a game.
Yeah.
I think That Dragon Cancer, it was essentially doing what a film should do, because it was streamable. Like, people streamed it all over, but you don't want to play that. And so films and games are completely different in their aim, and their goal. Unless someone else can figure out a good example in the comments of a game that isn't a wish fulfillment to some degree, I think it's good to just sort of land on wish fulfillment is a good rule of thumb for games.
Yeah, and like, sometimes you just want to go to a place. Like, that's what's so great about games is like, I'm there. Like, Dear Esther is like, a controversial game. And the people will be like, what's the wish fulfillment? You just walk. But like, I love it because you go to this beautiful island, the music plays. There is like some gameplay things where like the dialogue is randomized, which makes the story a little different each time.
Yeah. And
you're looking for ghosts in Dear Esther, but it is like, sometimes I just want to go to a place. And like with Twisted Tower 2, I think the wish fulfillment, not only is there like, I want to play BioShock again, that's wish fulfillment, but the wish fulfillment is, what if Disneyland was like super effed up and everyone was getting murdered? That's kind of what I would describe it as.
Well, one of the additional wish fulfillments, and sorry, my dog is barking if everyone can hear that, but one of the wish fulfillments that I want to get your opinion on, because I've had some negativity about it, is in Twisted Tower, you play as kind of like, I don't know the best word for this, but you kind of play as like a beta male who's been friend zoned by this really cute girl. And I've been there. I mean, I think a lot of people listening have been there as well, when you just get friend zoned and you're just not cool enough and you're not strong enough and big enough. And so the character's name is Tiny, and his nickname is Tiny because a bully in high school named him Tiny. And so the wish fulfillment is, what if I could prove my worth to a girl and show her who's boss?
Yeah.
Now, people have said that's a really crappy motivation, and I agree with them. However, there's more to the story, by the way. It's not like you just become awesome and you prove your worth by killing monsters. But do you feel like there's some wish fulfillment there?
Oh, for sure. I think that's a interesting round character. Round being like not so easy to put into one compartment, maybe, it could be just everybody's different. And to me, like, I played the demo and I immediately liked Tiny. I was like, oh, Tiny's interesting. And that's because, I don't know if like I'm a beta male, but I'm more mild mannered. I'm shy. I've been friend zoned countless times. It's just what happens. And so immediately I took a liking to Tiny, but also we were talking about the village, Thomas, and like I immediately liked Lucius, Joaquin Phoenix's character, and it sounds like you didn't like him as much. So
maybe it's not that Joaquin Phoenix was the problem. Maybe it's that they miscast him. You know, I'm trying to think of a better actor who could do it. Maybe Andrew Garfield. You know, like Peter Parker is that. We all feel this way, whether we want to or not, as men, which is, especially when you're in high school.
Yeah.
You feel this feeling of like, I'm just not big enough. In an emotional sense, in a physical sense, I'm just not cool enough. I'm not the football player.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the quarterback star. And Spider-Man, the wish fulfillment of Spider-Man is, what if you had superpowers and you proved everybody wrong? Totally. You know, what if you got bit by a spider in Germany and Gamescom in your hotel?
Yeah.
And that sounds exactly what happened to you, by the way. You became a superhero in one night, and maybe you got bit by a spider. I don't know.
Probably did. Probably ate them, like that myth says. You eat all these spiders in your sleep.
That's right. Yeah. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think, to sort of wrap this discussion up, I love what you said about wish fulfillment. And I want to encourage everyone listening to try and find some kind of wish fulfillment for their games, because I have never thought about that. And I think that is exactly what a game should do. That's brilliant, dude.
Good. No, I'm glad.
I think you've done so good with your game. You exactly like that feeling of putting. This is a weird example, but that feeling of putting the work of my hands in a trailer and getting paid for it on land.
Yeah.
That is that's my dream. Like you can ask my wife. We talk about this all the time of like, I want to get goats. I want to have an orchard. I want a trailer for my truck on my land, and I want everyone else to shut up and let me do what I want to do.
That sounds so nice. I think a lot of people, especially programmers and people in tech, that's what I've learned is that they all kind of like, oh, I just want land and a garden. And so I put myself into the game. And as you would know it, like a lot of people feel the same way. And I think that's why it's being received so well. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Virginia. And we had 10 acres. Like we walked, it's like a huge like amount of land, and we had creeks running through everything. We had animals. Oh, I love it. Now I have a quarter acre, but that's okay. Maybe one day.
Everyone I know who's grown up on land resents it.
Really?
Yeah, I know several people who they grew up as kids on a farm, and they just want to live the suburb life. Is that true for you, or do you
I don't know. You know, I have kids, and I love how they run around the neighborhood and they're friends with everybody, and we have great neighbors. So you just try to bloom where you're planted, which is a good farming metaphor for we harvest shadows and stuff. I'm just trying to be present, and just that's like my hyperactive brain is like, I've learned that I'm always thinking 20 steps ahead. So sometimes I'm like, oh, will we move one day? And I'm like, we're happy here, trying to focus on the present. My brother is in the hospital waiting to get a heart transplant, so I visit him all the time. Wow. Trying to, just think about him and pray for him. So no, it's I'm really fortunate. And, like we go through hard times as adults, as parents, as game developers, as business owners. But what I'm learning too is that there's so much to be grateful for as well. And that's kind of the lessons I've learned. And I'm trying to put again those feelings into We Harvest Shadows. And I think people want to hear that. They want the catharsis, like they said, and they want the wish fulfillment. But then my hope is that they'll get the wish fulfillment of like, oh, I'm alone. I have 1,000 acres. And then they'll be like, maybe this isn't what it cracked up to, what it's cracked up to be. And they'll learn something about themselves, because that's what I think the great stories do out there. They teach us about ourselves most of all, and then we become better people for it.
Absolutely. Well, dude, that is a really, really good line to end on for this podcast.
It's been fun. I love talking to you, man. I'm excited for all your future projects, and I'll be buying Twisted Tower day one. I love it. It's truly, it's that kind of game I would love. So if people like BioShock, they should try the demo out, which I hope comes out soon, right?
Yeah, soon. We missed October for a variety of reasons that I can't get into. Maybe one day I'll tell the story. But it was painful because we really wanted to launch the demo. It's a Halloween game, so I mean, gosh, it would have been awesome. But
I hear you, man. Just hang in there. You're good at what you do. You learn from all these things, and that means, like what Julian said, you will eventually make that mega hit. And you've already had hits. You're like a huge success in so many ways. So you just keep going and keep improving. Yep. I had like a favor to ask your audience, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm really fortunate because there are publishers that are interested in my game, but I'm literally out of savings, like completely. So I did put Game Dev Unlocked on sale. So it's basically everything I've learned over 3 years. It has every lesson. It's A to Z of game development. And I made some new videos about We Harvest Shadows and why it made so many wish lists. And like what I did exactly step by step. So I hope it helps my students. We'd love for you to join. That would help me pay the bills. And, it's not like a super huge emergency because I'm really fortunate that the game has been received so well, and I'll probably get a publishing deal, which will pay my cost of living, which, that's been a whole thing, learning about publishers and talking to them and everything. Maybe we could do that another time, Thomas.
Well, I want to encourage everybody to check out the course below. Your course actually inspired my course. That's no surprise to you or to me. But I ended up making a course too because I saw that you did an incredible job teaching in your course. I took your course. It's very good. But I want to encourage everybody to check it out below. Mainly for my selfish reasons, I want people to check it out so that you can maybe stave off getting a publisher for a while. That's my opinion. Yeah. And try and survive for a little bit longer because you got lightning in a bottle. But
I've talked. Let's maybe do another podcast soon because like I've learned so much talking about the publishers. I've talked to like a dozen successful devs about their publishing experiences, and now I have like a really good overview of like what the industry looks like now in 2024. So
there's nightmare publishers.
Yeah,
there are. I've had some bad publishing deals in the past that have been brutal, and then I've had some that are like amazing, and it's like working with angels.
Yeah.
And you never really know. It's like the contract. We could talk all about this in another podcast, but a contract can be rock solid and you still have a nightmare situation because the publisher just sucks.
Yes, it's crazy.
But that's another conversation.
Yeah, I've learned so much. And I still, by the way, I'm undecided. I'm still talking to a bunch of people and I don't know what path I'm going to take. I'm still doing research, but like, you've helped me. You've given me some advice on calls and stuff. So I appreciate it. I'll let you know how it goes, but I'm still like, this has been such a huge learning experience. It's crazy when you get to this level of attention. Everyone comes running to you with money signs in their eyeballs, and it's scary. It's a hard decision, and
it's a worse situation to have than the alternative.
Yes.
The alternative is you have a publisher and you have no wish lists, and a publisher is like, hey, we believe in the game. That is a good situation. The situation you're in, if I'm going to be honest, is a potentially devastating situation.
Oh no.
Because you sign a deal. I know, you sign a deal with a publisher who schmoozes you because they want your freaking wish list that you earned. Yeah. And it infuriates me.
It's hard.
You want to get the publisher who has no idea about the wish list and they just believe in you. You, not your game, you. Yeah. That's the best situation.
Yeah.
But let's save that for another conversation, another podcast. And we'll wrap up here, mainly because I have to pee. And I think I heard my wife knocking at my door. So I will leave it link in the description for your course. Also to Wishlist, We Harvest Shadows. I've played it. It's awesome. Highly recommend it. Everybody listening to go play that game. And obviously buy it when it launches. And
thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I love talking to you. And hopefully we talk again soon, Thomas.
We will. Appreciate it, David.
Right.
David, cheers, man. See ya. By the way, if you're like me and you always dreamt of making an indie game as a full-time job, I have a free webinar below that goes into exactly how to make six figures with just a demo. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a paycheck, but there's actually 3 ways to make six figures before even finishing your game. I've done this multiple times, so check it out below if you do want to go full-time indie. And thanks for watching.